In today's tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make this simple straight gown. If you'd like to see how I made this, please watch the end of this tutorial. I want to welcome all returning subscribers. You guys are amazing, and if this is your first time seeing my video, you're welcome. Please consider subscribing if you're yet to subscribe to this channel, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. For this project, I'll be using Ankara fabric. I'll be using about 2.5 yards of Ankara fabric. I'll be using about 1 yard of crepe fabric, a black crepe, and I'll be using about half yard of sequin, and I have sequin bias, and I also have my lining. I'm going to line the Ankara parts. So let's get into the cutting. I'll be cutting the front and the back together, and I folded my fabric for the front into 2 and that for the back into 2. For the back I have 1.5 inches zipper allowance, and on fold I have quarter of the hip measurement plus extra 3 inches. I've ruled out a line which would act as a shoulder line, and from there to 9 inches is the chest line, 16.5 inches is the waistline, 25 inches is the hip line, and the length I have on the Ankara is 43.5 inches plus extra half inch joining allowance for joining the plain parts. Now to start, I'm going to take my shoulder slope. So I would use the 3-inch 8-inch standard for shoulder slope. At the 8-inch point, I'll come down by 1 inch and connect to the 3 inches point, okay, for the shoulder slope. Then on the start line, which is the shoulder line, I'm going to impute half of the shoulder measurement, which is 8.5 inches, and I'm also going to impute 8.5 inches on the chest line and connect these 2 points together. Then I'm going to impute quarter of the bust measurement plus extra quarter inch. I'm going to add quarter inch ease on the bust, and then I'm going to find the midpoint of this straight line here, and from that midpoint I noted it, and I'm going to make a curve for the back armhole connecting to the measurement on the chest line. For the front armhole, I'll come in at that point by half an inch. I'll connect that half an inch to the chest line and to the shoulder slope as I'm demonstrating. So here I'm just making the basic bodice. For the neckline, I'm going to use a neck width of 3.5 inches for both the front and the back, and for the back neck depth I'm using 1 inch, and for the front neck depth I'm using 4 inch. So I'm going to make a curve for the front neckline. Then I'm going to go ahead and take the shoulder joining allowance of half inch for joining the front and the back together. On the chest line, I've already imputed the bust measurement, so I'm going to add 1.5 inches sewing allowance. On the waist, I'm going to impute quarter of the waist measurement plus extra half inch for ease, and then 1.5 inches sewing allowance. On the hip, I'm going to impute quarter of the hip measurement plus extra half inch for ease, and then 1.5 inches sewing allowance. I'm going to connect all these measurements together. So I'm using the straight rule to connect from the chest to the waist, and I'm using the cuff part of my pattern master to connect from the waist to the hip. Then I'm going to bring down the measurements I have on the hip, the total measurements I have on the hip line. I'm going to bring that down on the hem of the Ankara. I'm going to bring down the exact measurements down to the length I have on this Ankara piece, and then I'm going to connect with a straight line. I'm going to connect that measurement from the hip line to the end of this fabric, to the hem of this fabric. So that's what I'm doing now. Now, to eliminate zip bulge at the waistline, at that zipper allowance, and from the tip of the zipper allowance, I'm going to come in by 3/4 of an inch to eliminate zip bulge, and I'm going to connect this to the chest line. You can see how I'm connecting it to the chest line and down towards the hip line this way. And to avoid shortage, this quarter inch I'm removing, I'm going to replace it at the side, the waist side. This replacement is only for the back part, so I'm just replacing it here for the back. I'm connecting to the chest line and down to the hip this way. So this is for the back. After cutting out, I'm going to trim it out from the front part. For the front part, I won't be needing it. So after taking all the measurements, I'm going to go ahead and cut out this piece. So while cutting, I'm going to cut the back armhole first. Don't cut the front together with the back, and the back neckline first. As I'm cutting, I'll go ahead and cut out this part for the zip bulge, and I'll split the back into two. I'm notching my zipper allowance. I'm also trimming out the neckline for the front. So I'll separate the front from the back, and I'm going to remove that 3/4 of an inch I added by the side. It's only needed for the back part, and I'm going to cut out the front armhole as well. Now that I'm done cutting out the pieces, I'm going to use the main fabric to cut out the lining pieces for both the front and the back. So to complete the length of this dress, I have cut my crepe on fold for both the front and the back. The length is the total length of the dress minus the 43.5 inches I have on the Ankara part, plus extra 2 inches, 1 inch for joining allowance and 1.5 inches for folding the hem of the crepe. Okay, so for this piece, the sequin that will be attached at the top part, I'll be cutting that on my paper, on this brown paper. On fold, the paper is on fold. On fold, you should have half of the shoulder measurement, and the length should be at least 20 inches. So I'm placing it on underneath the Ankara and pinning them together to trace out the neckline, the armhole and the shoulder, so that this paper takes the shape of the upper part of this dress. So after that, I'm going to bring out this paper and place it on top to complete the shape I want for the sequin. So I'm going to align them together, and then I'm going to place my tape and measure. You know, the neckline of this is 4 inches, so I'm going to place my tape this way and measure 18.5 inches. I want it to stop a bit below the half length. Okay, so I'm going to connect this point to the tip of the shoulder as I'm demonstrating. Then I'll go ahead and cut out this shape I have now. I'll pin my paper together so that it doesn't shift as I'm cutting. I'll go ahead and cut out this shape and use the shape I have on the paper to cut out the sequin. Okay, that's what I would do. So after cutting that out, I would have to open up my fabric. Okay, remember I ironed crease. Please iron crease on your center front, is very important. So when I open this up, I'll make sure that the tip of this triangular shape is matching the crease on the Ankara piece. For the sequin at the lower part, I've cut out, and I have a length of 7 inches, including the folding allowance of 1/2 inch on both sides, and the width is as long as the width of the crepe, and I've also ironed interfacing hairstay to it. So for this triangular piece at the top, I'm just cutting it out. I'm not adding any allowance while cutting because I've already added my allowance on the paper. Okay, so what I have, the measurement I have on the paper includes the sewing allowance. Okay, so and while cutting, make sure you pin together the paper and the sequin so it doesn't shift or move while you're cutting. So I've done that. I've finished cutting this. So what I'm going to do now is to place it. This is the right side of the Ankara. Like I said, you place it making sure that the tip of this triangular shape is touching the crease line formed on ironed on the Ankara piece. I'll go ahead and arrange very well and pin them together before I start sewing. So make sure you arrange very well. I also ironed hairstay on this piece. On all the sequin pieces, I ironed hairstay. So I'll go ahead and sew the edges to this piece. I'm going to sew it, the neckline, all these edges and the shoulder. I'll sew them together. After sewing, I'm going to bring in the sequin bias. At this other side, at the right hand side, I'm going to measure and stop at that triangular tip and then cut out what I have. So that's where this one coming from this side will stop. So I've cut out that piece, and then the other piece will start from the shoulder, the tip of the shoulder, and cover the other one, the first one I've sewn. And then when I reach at that tip, I'm going to make sure it aligns with the crease on the Ankara. That's how I'm going to sew on both sides of this bias strip till I get to the hem. I'll stop about 1/2 inch before the hem. That's what I'm going to do. So I've sewn the sequin on the Ankara piece, so you can see my seam on the back part. I'm going to trim out the excesses I have around the neck and the shoulder area. I'm going to trim it out. Then I'm going to remove my pins. Okay, I pinned them together so that it doesn't shift when I'm sewing. I'm then going to bring in the sequin I explained earlier. I'll start from the right side, the right hand side. I would start sewing. I'm going to place it on top to cover the rough edge of this sequin. Okay, that's why I'm placing it on top, slightly on top of it. I'll sew at the two ends of the bias. I'll sew at the two ends. After sewing that right side, I would start also from the shoulder and sew the wrong side. I'll use the left side to cover the seam on the right side, and then sew, as I've explained before, down at the crease part. And then I'm going to use my lining piece to turn both the front parts, the front piece and the back pieces. I'll be attaching pocket to this, so I've folded my fabric into 4 and I'm making a curve big enough to contain the hand. I won't be explaining how to attach pockets in this video. I have several videos on that, and I'll be dropping links to some of the videos in the description box in case you don't know how to attach pockets to your dress or to any garment you're making. Okay, so I've turned this front piece. You can see what I have. I've ironed properly. I've also done the same for the back pieces. I've turned. Okay, so the lower part is not turned. Okay, the hem part of this Ankara is not turned. Okay, so to join the shoulder, I'm going to place them right side to right side, and I'll flip one part of the lining to the other side to have a neat finishing and join the shoulders that way. Okay, then I'll go ahead and attach my pocket. My pocket is going to start ½ inch below the waistline. Okay, so that's I'm going to place the pockets, all right, and attach them. Then I'll go ahead and install zipper at the back part. Okay, so when I would measure the part for the zipper and sew up the remaining part, and then install the zipper for the back, and then go ahead and close up the whole dress. Okay, so I've closed the sides of this dress and I stopped 1 inch before the hem. Okay, you can see also I left ½ inch. I did not sew the bias completely to the end. That's because I'm going to be joining these two together. Place them right sides facing each other and join them. That's also how I attach the back crepe. But before then, I'm going to place the sequin on it this way at the midpoint. Okay, putting into consideration the 1.5 inches hemming allowance for the lower part, I'll fold in ½ inch on both sides and sew on top of it on the crepe. That's how you attach this. Trim out the excesses, and then I'll go ahead and attach it to the Ankara using ½ inch sewing allowance. After attaching the front one, I'll then continue sewing the bias down this way as I'm demonstrating. So guys, I've done all of this. You can see the bias strip. You can see how beautiful this looks. I've attached the crepe to the Ankara. I've attached the sequin to the crepe. I've hemmed the lower part of the crepe because I did not line the lower part of the crepe. And also guys, there is a slit at the side. Okay, so the side with the crepe is a slit. That part forms the slit. So I hemmed that opening. Okay, I hemmed it so that it looks nice. Okay, and for the sleeve, I attached a basic short sleeve. If you don't know how to make a basic short sleeve, I'll drop a link in the description box on how you can draft a basic short sleeve, and I also drop a link to a playlist where I have different kinds of sleeve that you can attach to your dress. So guys, we've come to the end of this tutorial. This is what the back looks like. Thank you for watching up to this point. Please subscribe to this channel if you're yet to subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell so that you'll be able to get notified every time I upload a new video, and don't forget to like this video. I really hope you enjoyed watching this, and I will see you in my next tutorial. Bye.